Hi everyone, welcome to another table talk. In this episode I wanted to talk about some of the basic tools that I have in my park jet workshop that I use for building my park jets. Now, you probably have a lot of these tools in your house already. What I did was over time I sort of picked these up either from the dollar store or on sale, or when I made up my birthday list or my Christmas card list, I got people to buy these things for me. So I have, other than some of the more specialty, more expensive tools like the soldering gun here, these are all dedicated just to my workshop here, so that I'm not borrowing stuff out of my own main toolbox and then ended up losing it, or never being able to find that screwdriver that you need to find. So these are all sort of things that are dedicated here to my workshop. And again, these are pretty basic. I picked, like I said, I picked up a lot of these from the dollar store, or they were, they were given to me as gifts, because the older you get, we're all harder to buy for. So I've, told the birthday fairy or Santa Claus what I've wanted, and I've been, they've kindly come through on the deal. The other idea too is I've seen, if you're looking at picking up some of these tools for cheap, when garage sale season or yard sale season or boot sale season or whatever they call it wherever you live is coming up, go browse around through some of those. You never know. I've been to lots of them where guys are selling odds and ends out of a toolbox, and you might find all kinds of great tools for for dirt cheap. So lots of different options. You don't certainly have to break the bank to get yourself equipped. Okay, so we'll start over on this side. So I think a very important thing is to get yourself a long metal straight edge. This is it's actually 1 meter long, so 100 millimeters, about 39 inches. Picked this up from a hardware store for not too expensive. When you're making those score lines, when you need to cut a groove out for putting reinforcement in your wing, or you're beveling like a long hinge line like on your the back plate of your park jet where your elevons are going to go, you definitely want a metal straight edge that's longer than 12 inches for those purposes. So and also lots of times for measuring things that are longer than 12 inches, definitely handy to have a long metal straight edge. So I'll just put this back here out of the way. And then I also have, this is an old metal ruler. It's become more of a straight edge now because it's so gunked up with glue and everything else here. I can barely see the little tick marks to use it as an actual ruler. But it's super handy for the smaller hinge lines and things like that when you need to have a metal straight edge to lay your knife against for beveling hinge lines. So definitely a handy thing to have, a metal 12-inch or 30-centimeter ruler as a straight edge. I also have some clear rulers. I like to modify, do a lot of modifications on my planes, and I find when I'm laying the clear ruler down on the plan, it's a lot easier to line up the little mark on the ruler and then be able to measure from that when I can actually see through the ruler, because then I can see the lines on the plans through the ruler. So I picked these up at the buck store. Again, these, I probably have to replace these about once a year because they end up getting covered in glue or paint or whatever else. But you can get these for super cheap. Actually, I think this green one here, I think I bought 2 of them in the same package for only $1.25 or something like that. So these are handy to have, especially if you're wanting to measure things on a set of plans or do some modifications. So having a transparent ruler is a really helpful thing. Gosh, I'm actually organizing my workshop as we go along here. Again, if you want to check, it's handy to have a protractor so you can obviously measure angles. If you want to be able to measure angles on your throws, or again, if you're doing modifications, you want to play around with something. I just got these. These came in a very inexpensive geometry set. I think I bought from the dollar store with a couple of these, plastic right angle dealies and a protractor. Very, very handy. Now, what I do also is I made these up. These are a 90-degree, obviously, measurement again, but what I did was I sort of cut the tip off there, so that, let's say you've just glued two pieces of your plane together, and you want, like, you know, let's say you put your horizontal stabilizers on, and they need to be, you want to make sure that they're bang on 90 degrees. What you can do is you can put this on, and because it's made out of foam, you can pop a couple of pins in it, and because I've cut the gap, the tip off there, is it just makes sure that you don't actually glue this to your plane, you know, like if this came down and was continued the 90-degree angle down there, and you shoved that into a glue joint, pinned it down, and then forgot, and you came back, and now you've glued this to your plane. You know, ask me how I know that. So you can just make these up cheap out of obviously some scrap foam, but these are really handy. And then plus you can, you know, if you need to hold something at a 90-degree angle, just get it set, and then you can poke pins through this and into the foam of your plane, and then it'll hold your 90-degree angle true while the glue dries, and you won't glue your piece, your little angle tool to the plane. So those work out really well. Okay, so those are sort of measurement devices. I use about 3 different knives when I build. This is you know, one of these things where the blade, you've actually got, you know, 2 blades in one. So, you know, one end gets dull, and you just flip it over, and then you've got another sharp blade. I do this for the bulk of my foam cutting, primarily if I'm, you know, with the Depron model plane foam, for beveling my hinges and that sort of thing. I like the fact that it's got a real strong metal handle, real strong backbone, so I know that, you know, when I'm putting pressure down on something, that, you know, I'm not going to, you know, it's not going to flex on me a whole lot. So this has probably been my go-to knife. The other thing, if I can find them here, yeah. The other thing that I do is I buy, this is like a contractor pack of the blades. There's 100 blades, well in effect 200 blades. So when I'm getting low on these, you know, I just keep an eye at my local hardware store for when these go on sale, and you know, these will last me a very, very long time. But that's a cheap way. You can also pick these up. Sometimes the blades, the replacement blades for these knives at the dollar store. I think I picked this one up at Home Depot, but you know, a good strong metal knife. I've shown you this knife before. This has got the one where you know, you've got, in effect, I think you've got about 10 blade tips here, 8 or 10 blade tips. So, you know, you can use the point, and then when this gets dull, or this last piece gets dull, you can just snap it off cleanly. I found, probably because the blade might be a slightly thinner, that when I'm cutting Dollar Tree foam, this knife seems to work better. With this knife, what I was finding with Dollar Tree foam, I would end up, maybe because the blade was a little bit thicker, I was end up crushing the foam, or I don't crush the foam as much with this knife. And then because Dollar Tree foam, with the paper on both sides of it, it tends to dull the knife really a lot faster than the other foams. Is, you know, you can cut for a while, and then as soon as I start to feel the knife drag a little bit, I just snap the tip off, and then I've got a, you know, fresh tip, you know, fresh, you know, whatever it is, 3/8 of an inch, and then I'm good to go. Now the other thing is, if you watch my video about how I sand and finish my planes, if I need to shave off, you know, a square corner or along the leading edge of my wing after I put my KFs on, I really like to use this. Put a nice sharp blade in this, and then you've got a lot more blade to work with. You know, a lot of blade surface to work with, that you can do some clean cutting that way. And again, these I just picked these replacement blades up at the dollar store, dirt cheap. This is an inexpensive body that I got from Hobby King. You can buy the more expensive ones like the Olfas, which actually have like a metal track on the inside of them, and they're a lot stiffer and stronger. You can buy those at hardware stores, a little bit more expensive, but this has worked out well for me for what I use it for. And then you know, your number 11 X-Acto knife, I use this a little bit for you know, surgical cutting, I guess, if you want. This is handy, you know, if I need to cut out a servo hole when I'm mounting my servos, when I need to cut the servo hole out. This is normally what I'll use. And then any, you know, just real delicate sort of cutting or carving, I guess, if you want, number 11 X-Acto knife really works well for that. A couple of pairs of scissors. Obviously, you know, you're going to be cutting cutting the plans and things, these ones actually have a bit of glue on them, so they're a bit sticky. And then also, if for some tougher cutting, these are like more of like a household shear type thing that you can cut plastic. If you need to snip off a zip tie or something that's a little stiffer, these come in handy. And again, I picked these up at both these up at the dollar store. And I just clean the. You can clean the blades off with. Thought I had some around here, but Goof Off or one of those cleaners that'll take all that adhesive off of there just to keep them nice and clean. But which is, I guess, something I should probably do because those are a little sticky. So having a good pair of scissors, a couple pairs of scissors. So screwdrivers, I guess, are kind of driven by. By how you build and what you need to build with. I have one. This is kind of a just a straight flat blade, very very narrow for when I'm putting the reinforcement in my foam. In the video that I did on how I put reinforcements in my plane, I use the screwdriver once I've cut the two score lines. I use the screwdriver to sort of pluck the foam out nice and clean. So you definitely want to, have one of these, just a regular straight little, small straight flat blade screwdriver. This one here is just a multi-driver. It's got seven different screwdriver tips on it. So you've got pretty much everything covered in here, but all fairly large. I think the smallest it goes down to is like a 0. Robertson, maybe a 0 Phillips, so more of the larger stuff. But I use this one mostly for my my motor mount screws when I'm mounting the motor onto the wooden motor mount plate. So, but it's handy to have all those extras. As I mentioned in my maybe in my servos video and my linkage video, this is just a 1.5mm hex driver for the little grub screws that are on my servo linkage stoppers. So this comes in really handy. I picked up a couple of these, I think, from Hobby King when they were cheap. So I have one on my bench here and one in my flight box. Just a little. This is actually a little screwdriver. Years and years ago, when I first got into the hobby, I think I had bought like a GWS slow stick or something, and it's just a little small Phillips screwdriver, but it's the perfect size for most. Servo screws, that hold the servo arm on, for most 9-gram size servos, which most of us use on our park jets. So that's really handy. So you want some kind of small little Phillips for that fit your servo screws. Now, since I started using 5-gram servos, those screws are actually pretty tiny. So this is actually just an old tiny Phillips screwdriver that I got out of an old sunglasses repair kit or a glasses repair kit, and there's actually a little flat blade on the other end. But yeah, and I've also seen them. I've also seen these little tiny things at the dollar store, eyeglass repair kit. So you can pick one of those up if you're using 5-gram servos or really small little screws. Those are handy to have. A couple of pairs of pliers. One just your run-of-the-mill sort of expandable type pliers. If you need to get a good grip on something, or bend something. Needlenose, again, I picked these two up as a pair at the dollar store, I think for about $2, $2.50, something like that. So a little pair of needlenose pliers, for any delicate things that you need to hang on to, or whatever. Good to have those. These are just your standard little run-of-the-mill side cutters for snipping wires, snipping off zip ties, all that sort of stuff. These come in really handy. You'll definitely need a set of these in your toolbox in your workshop. This is just a good pair of wire strippers of many gauges, to be able to strip the insulation off the outside of a wire before soldering them. That sort of thing. I think I got this at the dollar store as well. So again, yeah, another great find. It also has wire cutters in here. They're not the best. The little snips or side cutters or whatever you want to call them. Those seem to work the best. But these are handy for, like I said, just for snipping off a little bit of insulation at the end of a wire when you need to solder things. Okay, so for soldering, at some point in time, you're definitely going to have to learn how to solder if you don't know how to solder. It's something that for me that's still a work in progress. And I used to use the little, the soldering irons that you buy at the hardware store, and I found I wasn't having the greatest luck with those. Either they were burning out or they were inconsistent heat. So I treated myself just after Christmas and bought, a good quality soldering gun. Now this is mostly for light electrical stuff. It's 140 or 100 watts. It's got like a sort of a two-position, 2 clicks on the trigger here. But it heats up really nice and hot, and allows me to kind of, especially when I'm dealing with batteries, if I have to solder a connector on a battery or repair a connection on a battery, is you can get it nice and hot. Just kind of get in there, melt the solder, tap it on, and get it off before you heat anything up. So yeah, this cost me a few more bucks. I think this was about $65, something like that. But it's been well worth the money. Now I also where I live, in the hardware stores, they sell nothing but lead-free solder. I don't know if that's an environmental choice or government choice or what, but anyway, so I found I was having a lot of problems with my solder joints breaking on me, and happen to have a piece of wood here, so touch wood. I never lost a plane, but I did have at the field where I'd be disconnecting my battery and my speed controller, and then next thing one of my connections would come apart on my speed controller or my battery or something, because I'd been using lead free. So I did a lot of research. So this is actually solder. It's rosin core solder. It's a 6337 mix, and I can't remember what the 63 and what the 37 means, but I actually ordered this from Banggood, so it's much easier to work with because it melts a lot quicker than the lead-free stuff, and I seem to get much stronger already. Just in about a month of using it, I'm getting much stronger solder joints. So yeah, I'll just keep getting this from Banggood. It's dirt cheap. So some things that I use, for soldering, I bought this little. I picked up this little thing from Hobby King a long time ago. It's called Mr. Jig. The nice thing about it is, like, if I'm soldering an XT60 connector, let's say, there's a little gap in the side here, and if XT60 connector fits in there just perfectly, and then you can just kind of just kind of tighten it down a little bit, and then stand it on the side, and now your XT60 connector is being held still while you solder your wires on there. So that's worked out well. It also has holes here of varying sizes for putting your bullet connectors down inside, so you can put the solder in. Again, I've used this for a long time. This is just a piece of wood that I just drilled holes in. You might be able to see the burn marks here. Putting the little bullet connectors down in the hole, and then filling up the little bowl there with solder, and then putting a wire down inside it. So that's worked out really well. I also like to have this on my workbench when I'm doing soldering, so that I don't burn holes in my cutting mat. This is another kind of valuable tool. You can tell it's seen lots of use. It's one of those cutting mats I've had for a long time now. I guess probably about 4 or 5 years. It's got lots of globs of glue and stuff on it, but it's still doing the job. So anyway, just this scrap piece of wood, or if you need to bolt something down onto it for whatever reason, it's handy to have this. This is something that I've recently just started using. There's a fellow, Stu, from Australia. He's got a great, if you're into quads, mini quads, racing quads, FPV, he's got a great website, and he's really infectious enthusiasm. So anyway, I happened to be watching one of his videos, I think over Christmas or whatever, and he was using this stuff. He calls it blue tack, and I mean this stuff is actually blue, but it's the stuff you buy at like an office supply store, you know, that you put little gobs on if you're putting say a poster up on the wall. You don't want to put holes in the wall, but it's like a I guess a plasticine or a silly putty that doesn't dry out. So like what he's done, what I watched him do in his videos, sometimes if you need to tin your wires or something, you know, you lay the piece of foam tack down, and then you can just kind of push your wires down into that blue tack, and then that sort of holds it, and then you can, you know, tin the tips of your wires really easily. So that works out real well. So thanks to Stu from UAV Futures for that little tip. So there we go, folks. So like I said, you know, like much of this, the odd specialty tool, you know, I needed to either order from Hobby King or maybe picked up from the hardware store. A lot of the stuff, you know, I spent very little money on it, got it at the dollar store, or, you know, had used the kindness of people buying me gifts on my birthday or Christmas to pick up the rest. So you can get the tools, you know, that you need. I think that these are some of the basics. These are the tools that I definitely use the most. There's other little odds and ends. I mean, obviously a drill. Sometimes you'll need a drill to, you know, drill holes in your, you know, your control horns or whatever. But you know, I think every household's probably got a cordless drill. So yeah, so there's some basics, folks. Again, especially if you're just getting started off or you're just building electrics, you know, you probably don't need quite as many tools maybe as you need if you were building with balsa. I don't really know. I've never built with balsa, so I guess I shouldn't say. But these are some of the basics that have worked really, really well for me. So if you're looking to start up your workshop, if you're new in the hobby or new building electric foamies, these are definitely some things that you're going to probably want to pick up along the way. And then again, if you know, have your own set at your workbench rather than digging into your toolbox all the time and then, you know, misplacing something, or you know, your significant other goes and borrows it, and then you can never find the screwdriver that you need, or the pair of pliers that you need, or the side cutters that you need when you need them. So anyway, I hope that's been helpful. Thanks very much for watching. You know, if you have any comments or suggestions, tools that have worked well for you, you know, please don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. I probably won't bother doing a supporting blog post to this, since most of these things are pretty general. But if you have a question on where I might have picked up something, you know, again, please leave a comment down below, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. So thanks very much again for watching. Blue skies, calm winds to everyone. Park jet noise, the other sound of freedom, baby. Take care.